It gives me very great pleasure to welcome, talking about the New York Times AI and long-term engagement, CTO of the New York Times, Nick Rockwell, who will be interviewed by our own editor-in-chief, Blaise Sorega. Please welcome them.
Good morning. Good morning, Nick.
Morning.
Thanks, everyone, for coming. Really excited to speak with Nick today about the New York Times. The title of our talk is New York Times, AI, and Engagement. And specifically, what we want to explore is how the New York Times uses machine learning to develop personalization strategies, to improve upon them, measure them, so on, all in furtherance of the company's business goals, chief of which is driving digital subscriptions.
Survival.
Survival, yes.
Good a word as any.
It's an important time for media. You know, there was a recent tweet from someone that read, if the people of our great country could only see how viciously, inaccurately my administration is covered by certain media. That, of course, is from President Donald Trump.
I think he was talking about CNN.
Well, I think he's renamed you the failing New York Times. Do a search for that, and you know, sort of like it's a new masthead or something.
Yes.
Completely. But it's an interesting time because there's scrutiny, there's benefits, there's praise. I'm personally heartened by a refocus on a reminder of the importance of a vigorous, free, independent press. Mm-hmm. And I think the standard bearer, in many ways, of all this is the old gray lady, is the New York Times. And we look at what's happened. Okay, so traffic has been very strong.
Yes.
In fourth quarter, the New York Times reported an additional 276,000 new online subscriptions.
A number that we beat.
And you beat in Q1 with 308,000. So
correct, yes.
Things are moving up.
Thank you for having the numbers for me.
It's my job. Digital revenues also are up 19%. Now, of course, there's other issues, print going down and so on. But nonetheless, this is a significant opportunity and a challenge for Nick as CTO, how to capitalize on this interest in this traffic to, as he has put it to me in an earlier conversation, provide an indispensable reading experience and to get people into that propensity to subscribe, into that zone of deep engagement. So maybe we could start by asking that, sort of, what is the data that you're tracking and measuring? I imagine with the 150 million monthly uniques and the thousands of articles, blog posts, videos being produced each month, what is it that you look for? What is it? What data points are you gathering?
So I mean, I'm going to say that we track everything that we can think of, and obviously we track everything that every user reads. There's a number of other milestones along the customer journey that we look at, whether they've subscribed to an email, what marketing we've sent and they've responded to, any other actions where people are coming from, what social channels, et cetera. There's also just events like any product development organization does, any kind of event that we're interested in that we feel is potentially valuable to us, we're going to trigger an event and capture that. So yeah, we generate a fair amount of data. I mean, in the scheme of big data, it's not terribly significant, but we, like everyone, have benefited greatly by the incredible, development of data processing infrastructure. Today, all this data and all of our advertising data as well, and all of our web analytics are ending up in Google BigQuery, which is an incredibly powerful tool that we use as our primary view into this data stream. But we're capturing everything we can about every action that he takes.
And how do you think about? I got actually two questions here. First off, let's talk about, you mentioned the funnel, the data you're tracking at, and I hate to say that, think of a reader as the top of a funnel, but the casual person coming in to a specific story, then moving them, I'll say, down the funnel with messaging, with newsletter signups, and looking for key signals around that propensity to subscribe, and then converting them and retaining them? How does ML or machine learning,
Sure.
what role does it play in each of these steps?
The way that I've come to think about what we do is that there's two core problems that we're trying to solve. And by far the preeminent one is creating a relevant report for our readers, like establishing and maintaining ourselves as a must-read for people. And that is a long process of introducing people to what we do and what our reporting is, and then building engagement over time. But that's what drives our entire business, obviously. Then alongside that, there's understanding for a particular user, like what's the journey that will bring them to conversion, so they become a paying subscriber, and we can fund our newsroom and carry on with our mission. Both of those problems are optimization problems, and they're both very tractable to data analysis and machine learning techniques. So I think what is exciting about machine learning in particular is it opens up the ability to really tailor and mix strategies for both of those problems on an individual basis. So as we can not only understand like what is relevant to a particular user, but because we're also dealing with new content every day, unlike a Netflix, we can actually understand like what strategies for relevance are most resonant with a particular user. This is the kind of thinking that leads me to say things like that actually machine learning driven relevance is the primary way that we build our international business. So if we're going to appeal, we have an opportunity now. Previously, when we were print distributed, we were regional and eventually national. We have an opportunity to be an international product and news source. So how do we appeal to a reader in Tokyo or Brazil or Germany? To me, that's a subset of a question of how do we make the most relevant report for every reader. So that's an example of a way that better relevance can drive our business in an entirely different way.
And in thinking about relevance, though, and thinking about the New York Times, you've got incredible depth, incredible breadth, right? I mean, you got sports, you've got politics, you got international.
Personally, very proud of our sports coverage. I'm not sure everybody feels that way.
I'm not sure I agree, but it's okay.
We have a unique take on the sports world.
Occasionally find something worth reading. No, I'm kidding. But you have this heritage of the printed page, which invited serendipity and discovery. How do you replicate that in thinking about recommendations and personalization?
So this to me is the core challenge that we have to solve, is particularly in a digital world, but particularly in a mobile world, how do we surface the breadth of what we cover to a user? I use the app primarily. Most of our engaged readers use the app primarily. They still come to the homepage. That's their main filter. We might surface 20 to 25 stories in the main homepage river on a given day.
Is that about 10%?
That's about 10%. We're producing between 200 and 300 pieces of journalism a day. So, and that list is curated by the newsroom, and it's curated primarily with our mission in mind of like what does a citizen need to know about. So that's going to be hard news. It's going to be mostly politics, some other like international hard news, and there are whole sections of the report that you just won't see. And like I've been reading the paper since I was 12 or something. And even the other day, I was like, oh, I forgot that we do music coverage. So I came across something, and I was like, oh, I haven't looked at the music coverage in like a year. And that's because it's so difficult for us to surface the full breadth of what we do in that narrow window, where we have so much of it like taken up by, the core mission of what we do, which is critically important. We would never want to change that or subvert it. So I don't think the answer is like, it's heavily personalizing the home screen. There are other ways that other mechanisms in the product and other channels that we can use to surface the breadth of the report. And one last thing, it's not just that it seems like a nice idea to surface the breadth and that we want people to appreciate all the stuff that we do. We actually know from the data that experiencing the breadth of the report is one of, if not the most important driver of propensity to subscribe. So people convert from a reader to a subscriber when they see the breadth of what we do. So it's like a core strategic problem that in a world people are on their phones, we have to show them the breadth of what we do and get them to appreciate it so that they subscribe, so that we can keep our business going.
And do you think about, I was listening to you talking about, I think of the New York Times in many ways as a public trust in some ways, it really does serve an important function in our society. And you mentioned that part of the mission is to, and I'm sure the editorial team feels this way, is to give people, in some ways, tell people what they need to know each day. That's sort of an editor's job in many ways. So that sort of dictates what goes on the front page of the newspaper and the homepage of the website. But then when people come in sideways, meaning via search or referrals, they're on a different path.
Yeah.
And also, I guess, on the app as well. You mentioned 25% of the content there. And how do you determine, do you have 3 different personas, I guess? Maybe that's one way to think about it. How do you serve the needs of all those people and balance out the... machine learning can very accurately tell you what you've read and what you might want to read next. That's very different than an editor's choice of what to put on the homepage.
Sure. I think the answer is that we take a long view. So if somebody comes in through a side door and through a particular story, we're not going to then hit them over the head with like the thing that we think is like, you want to read this story, but you shouldn't read that. You should read this. Like that would be really weird. Maybe we should
ignore the man behind the curtain.
But what we're trying to do is introduce them to who we are and our report and what's what we're about, and then over time build them into an engaged reader, and then hopefully they will turn to us to like answer the question of like, what do I really need to know? Like, how can I be informed rather than just, oh, I stumbled across this particular story on Twitter. So that's part of the journey, I would say. But at the same time, we think very carefully about our social strategy, and we view social channels as, to some degree, like another version of the homepage, and we do apply much of the same thinking to what we promote ourselves through social channels.
And you mentioned building rapport with your audience, and you've also used over time and journey. So how long does this journey take? I mean, traditionally, I think people would pick up the New York Times in their 20s, at the newsstand, sample it, 30s, subscribe, start writing checks.
Yeah, so that's a
how's that collapse?
That's a really good question, and like we have an answer from our data, which it's not to me a very satisfying answer, which is we see often like about an 18 to 24 month consideration period on average from when we encounter someone to when they may they sort of reach their peak propensity to subscribe. I find that unsatisfying because I think many of us believe intuitively that the consideration period is much longer than that, and that people have been exposed to the brand much earlier, and for like cookie death and all sorts of other reasons, like where the data is a little bit distorted there. I believe that it's anywhere from 2 to 5 years or longer.
Wow!
So we're building awareness and propensity.
Because just from a superficial understanding, a headline scanning way of looking at your subscription numbers, it would seem that these are almost impulse buys, like, New York Times doing a great job, speaking truth to power to the Trump administration, click, I'm in.
Sure. Well, that speaks to the uniqueness of the moment that we're in, obviously, and I know I haven't had a chance to talk about that too much. I think one thing that's so interesting about this moment is while it's super validating and exciting, and all of us who work at the Times are there for the mission, and this is like a very validating moment. And to be clear, because it's an opportunity to try to like speak the truth and be objective, not to take a partisan like stake in the conversation. But that said, there's this tidal wave of data that's highly distortive of our business. Like this is not normal, and this will not last forever. So we need to like how do we
going up?
How do we keep a clear view of the actual dynamics of our business in the face of this like extreme aberration right now? And that's something we do a lot of analytical work to try to like filter out the Trump bump from like business as usual and understand what this looks like as we go into the next quarter and the next and the next, and how it plays out.
Well, what is the new normal? What is the baseline? How do you determine this?
I mean, the problem with the new normal is the minute we think we know what the new normal looks like, he tweets again, and it goes out the window again. So like the new normal is abnormal at the moment, and that's going to go on for at least another 3.5 years, or possibly less, but who knows? So that's it's very complicated, and it's tricky.
So how long has AI or machine learning been a thing at the New York Times?
So, I mean,
when did recommendation become so interesting?
Yeah, and I've been thinking about it a lot during the course of this conference because it's like AI is such an umbrella term. There's so many things we can talk about under there. What I would say is that really, if we're serious, it's very new. Like we haven't seriously put, a programmatic approach to build relevance on an individual basis at the heart of our business, even like yet. And this is like my personal mission in life because I don't think there's any other way. Like there's incredible tools, novel tools and novel techniques that are becoming available to us. It's affecting everyone. There's this like mountain of compute power that's making previously difficult problems easy. And then for us, there's this like clarity, as we've focused on the subscription strategy, there's this clarity around what we need to do, which is build relevance. And there's the opportunity now to do it on an individual basis, again, like not on a sort of average basis. So we've been doing like content recommendation in typical like sidebar, circulate, recirc style for quite a long time, at least 10 years. And it hasn't been particularly impactful. It drives recirc by some 4 or 5% or something like that. I'll say I spent my whole career in digital media, and I've typically felt places like MTV or Condé Nast, I felt that recommendation was not a particularly productive thing to invest in. The Times is completely different. I mean, the Times, we're unlike almost any other media business that I've been involved in or looked at for a couple of reasons. One is that we are subscription first, and that business model works for us, and we can convert people. The other is that the level of engagement we see from our most engaged users is absolutely through the roof. So, across a lot of digital media businesses, good engagement looks like 7 or 8 page views a month. From our most engaged readers, we see 200, 300, 500.
Wow.
So we have a lot of data. We really do know the people that we know very well. And we have a very, very long tail. I mean, our total audience is typically globally around 140, 150 million monthly uniques. Our subscriber base is a bit over 3 million. And let's say there's about 10 million people who are very highly engaged non-subscribers. Those are the people that in some ways are most important to our business, understanding them better and getting them across the line. So like not a lot of other media companies have those dynamics and that ability to move the needle and that much data on the key people. So I think that's what makes us such a compelling opportunity for us.
Sure. And speaking of other media companies, I mean, so who has either doing it well or done it well? I mean, Netflix famously had this $1 million bounty if you could help them with a recommendation engine. Currently, who do you think might be doing it well, or anyone who sort of?
So I mean, I think you still have the Netflixes of the world. You still have, I mean, Amazon was just not a media company, but obviously has invested an enormous amount of effort and is very effective at their personalization. There's a few media companies that do it very, like more platformy ones that do it in often a very simplistic way, but that's nonetheless quite effective. Like it doesn't always have to be hard or super complicated. It can be, refined greatly.
Yep.
But I like what Medium does in this area. I like what Pocket does in this area. I think they do a lot. They do a lot with a little. I love Spotify. I mean, like to me, like Discover Weekly is like the perfect recommendation product. And like I'm trying to get us to confront and really learn from that. We actually have an interesting relationship with Spotify. We've done a little work with them. We're friends. Yeah. So, I think there's a lot that we can learn from them. And it's so interesting because like Discover Weekly, what I like most about it is that it's not just about giving you, more of what we think you're going to like. It's about helping you to discover new things. Yeah. So that's actually our problem too. Is like, how do we can't just throw more of the same at people. We need to drive discovery of, again, the breadth of our report. So we need to create some of that, like I like to say, this serendipity that you had when you like threw the paper on the table and the section spilled out and you're like, oh, what's that?
Right.
Like that kind of randomness.
Sure.
Or like, so really the problem we're trying to solve is it's a complicated problem because of the long consideration cycle and because of the need to drive discovery, not just another click. So we think a lot about what the right feedback signals are, like, just another click might not be getting us, it's not meeting all of the needs and all of the problems that we need to solve for.
So we just have 30 seconds left, and one last question then. So future additional ways AI may be implemented at the New York Times. I know you've done a project with Jigsaw, Google's effort to moderate comments, and what other problems might AI tackle?
So again, I really want to focus on these core problems of relevance and of optimizing the customer journey.
Okay.
The Jigsaw experiment, which very quickly, we shared all of our 10 years or 15 years of comment moderation data with Jigsaw, which is an Alphabet company that focuses on like social good on the internet. They wanted to look at our data to understand how to basically create safe forums for communication on the internet. And what we got out of it was like an ML-driven moderation tool that is enabling us to take, we only have comments on 10% of our stories. We want to take it to 100%, but we needed to be more efficient. So that has been a great arrangement and partnership for us. The last thing I want to say is that I believe AI is super hard. Machine learning is super hard, and there's still a ton of art involved, even though lots of great work being done by the platforms, but it still comes down to good judgment and experience of people who know how to do it. So part of the model too is how can we take our interesting problems and our interesting data, find good partners who bring 100 times the level of expertise to a problem that we can muster and create good results for both parties. I mean, that's, to me, the key to how we can move forward.
Great. Well, thank you. And we look forward to more machine learning, more art, and more great journalism. Thank you, Nick.